This is Joe Peters from MomFit with Joe Peters. Welcome to the Spanglish World Network and the H.E.R Network at Single TV channels 250 and 251. If you are not following me yet, please make sure to go to Instagram and follow me at Joe Unicorn Coach. Please also remember to download the Single TV app in all your iOS and Android devices. While downloading, make sure to rate and leave a comment. The app is free. Single TV is also available in Google Chromecast, Amazon Fire, Fire TV Stick, Roku, and Roku Stick in all smart TVs. I am super excited to have Erica here with me. We are going to be talking about something super important, and that is quoting her phrase, befriending your friend is the fastest route to the health breakthrough. Um, Erica is the creator and the founder of Wirth Wellness. She is also a host of a podcast, Weird Wellness, mother of one, stepmom of one, and a loving wife. After embarking on her own health reclamation adventure after years of chronic illness, mental health crisis, and burnout, she decided it was time to take healing into her own hands and get to know how her body will work and that her body was brilliant and not broken. All that this is physically and mentally was her body way of saying, not more putting me last, no more overriding my messages in favor of pleasing others. Now, she had the mission of supporting women in meeting their own healing magic for the first time by creating a daily rhythm way of life that honors their body's natural design and need for thriving. Erica, thank you so much for being here with us. We are going to have a lot of fun. I am very passionate about this topic. And let's gonna start with you sharing a little bit about your story, about what it was that adventure for you of hitting rock bottom and from there learn that it didn't have to be that way.
Well, Joe, thank you for having me. It's really exciting to get to share with your people some of what I've learned along the way. And hopefully, it's going to speak to people and help them in their own healing health reclamation process. So it's a pleasure to be here. Yeah. So when you say my story of hitting rock bottom, I've had a lot of different rock bottoms, but particularly in my health journey, it really started for me at the age of 14 when a lot was turbulent in my home environment and I was blossoming into a woman. I had started my period a couple years back, but at least for me and what I found now, like understanding in the culture at large, there's not a lot of education for girls when their body begins to, change into a woman about the beauty of it and like how incredibly natural and powerful it is to be making this passage from girl to woman. It's not really celebrated as it is in some other cultures where they maybe even host a ceremony or something to celebrate this new and exciting stage of life. And so for me, I I felt very anxious, self-conscious of my body and the changes and didn't really know what to do with all that energy. And then the things that were going on in my home environment were stressful and I just didn't have a lot of support around me outside of the family structure to talk to people about it. And so I personally turned inward. I think we all kind of have our own ways of coping, but for me, it was very much like an inward turn. And one of the first couple things that I realized, oh, I could control because so much outside felt like was out of my control were food and exercise. And what's interesting is I had always loved cooking and food. And thankfully, like having the skill of being able to prepare from scratch nourishing meals was something my mom really valued and was gifted at. And so she taught us from a young age how to cook. And I have so many fond memories of being in the kitchen and making food as a young kid. But then as I described when I hit 14 and all these other things were going on, it that relationship became pretty broken because I realized very quickly that I could restrict food and kind of manipulate something. Like food was the thing to manipulate in order to feel like I had a sense of control over something in my life. And then coupled with that, also just excessive, obsessive exercising, which, I mean, we know that there are mental health benefits to exercise, but not when it's used as a way to medicate, self medicate something that it's not intended to be doing. I mean, it's very health promotive, but not in the way that I was using it. So that was kind of the perfect storm. It went on for a couple months, and I started to drop a lot of weight to where everyone around me became very alarmed and ended up in counseling, nutritional counseling, and in the doctor's office. And they're like, if you don't gain weight immediately, I think they gave me like a week or something, you're going to be hospitalized and we're going to put you on a feeding tube. And like, that's horrifying as a young girl. Like, I don't want any of that. So I followed the program that they put me on and kind of crossed all my T's and dotted my I's with whatever they wanted me to do. But internally, I was not healthy at all still because it it wasn't something I wanted because I wasn't being given, which is really interesting. Like I wasn't being given tools to help me cope with the stress. It was just like, okay, you're in a health crisis, you need to gain weight. But nobody asked me, well, why are you hurting so much? Like, why do you feel like you have to restrict your food or exercise to the point of utter exhaustion in order to be okay? Like, nobody looked in deeper than what the physical manifestations were, like on the outside. And so it would take me years before I later went back to therapy as an adult because I realized I didn't want to function in the world with this level of anxiety because that was always, that was kind of someone always on my back following me around. Like as I grew up, it was just like this constant anxiety around food, but then also just about life in general. And so it became crippling as a young adult. I was battling that. I also had insomnia for years, so I wasn't sleeping at all, and that was just such a mess when you're trying to go to work every day and navigate, relationships and all the things that young new adults in the world when they're trying to launch are doing. And I was doing it on no sleep and just complete panic. And I remember at one point on my way to work, I had a full on panic attack, like started just sobbing out of nowhere and realized like I can't live like this anymore. And so, yeah, that's when I went back, checked myself back into counseling and started to work through some of the childhood wounds that were like unaddressed and definitely players in what I was experiencing then. And I also, though, had, which is not uncommon if you're someone who's highly anxious, that you also have gastrointestinal gut stuff going on because the gut and the brain are really linked. And actually, our feel good hormones are like serotonin, for instance, it's somewhere between like 70 and 80% is produced in your gut. And so the fact that, and we all know that when we're nervous or whatever, like we feel it in our gut, like that's where we feel it. So that has something that's been always like in the background for a long time. Like it's like I didn't even remember, but when I was a kid, I would end up in the ER because I was in such severe stomach pain and nobody knew what was wrong with me. I'd always get sent home. They'd run all the tests. Oh, she's fine. Nothing's wrong with her. But that was always on board. And in my adult life, it got worse and worse and worse to where I was, after I got married, this was in my like mid 20s, I just completely collapsed from the digestive issues. I couldn't eat anything. I ended up having to miss a lot of work. It definitely affected my ability to like support myself in that way. And that's when I stumbled into a naturopathic doctor's office and realized that emotions and physical symptoms were connected because like in all of my history of seeing Western mainstream medical doctors, nobody connected the two. And like nobody in the ER asked me like, "Are you stressed? Do you have trauma?" when I was there with my gut issues. But my naturopathic doctor did, and he was like, you know, "I can help you resolve these stomach issues, but like you've got to look at the emotional stuff, the childhood wounding, like you're not going to get better unless you're willing to look at the whole picture. And like, that's definitely a lot harder than just taking some medication and like being on your way. Like it's definitely a lot harder to look under the hood at some of those things. But as I began to do that, I realized, wow, like there is so much healing available for me, and I really could live a life that's free of this chronic anxiety, and I could sleep again, which, prior to I have a newborn now who's 8.5 months, but prior to that, I had solved my sleeping problem. Like, I was sleeping fantastic. I was I have tools now that I didn't have as a child to be able to bring myself down when I feel escalated, whether that's anxiety or just excess tension I need to like release from my body. I now have the tools to know how to ground myself and work through that in a way that's not self destructive, like the eating disorder was early on. So that's when I started to realize that my story could probably help other people, and I probably wasn't alone in my journey, and begin to share it as a passion. And that's where I'm at today.
Thank you so much for sharing that. And I so agree with you. Actually, one of the things that I work with my clients on one of my programs is it's never about the food, and it's
Mm,
never about the health. And I think that we are just starting as a society to understand that strong connection that you have. That actually, when I was doing my education as a yoga teacher,
mm,
learning about the different bodies, the physical, the energetical, the emotional, the mental. And then one of the thoughts is that the physical body is the last resource that
mm,
yourself had to send you the message that you were saying. So one of it like cues, and this is something work from Louis Hay from the
mm,
60s on, if you want to heal your body, one of the first things that you need to do is to start thinking what is the message from the emotional part, from the mental part. So I love your story and how you're doing that. Let's gonna go into how this apply to moms and moms to be, our audience, and how as females of moms to be, um, we can start preparing, and like you were saying in your quote, befriending our body, and what that means, what it means for you as a pregnant mom, as a mom that decide, find out that was pregnant, even because it was planned or it's a surprise, how we can start doing that journey of befriending, and why that is one of the most key points, if you didn't start yet, to start being friend with your body as you start preparing to enter into that motherhood journey.
Yeah, that's such a good question because while I was pregnant, I heard the quote, I think it was pertaining to birth, like, how you live is how you're going to birth. And kind of also in pregnancy, I would say that that translates like how you live now, like the state of your mental and emotional health is gonna be critical, like, in your pregnancy if you're going into that, but, like, I guess don't expect for you to be somewhere you're not today then just because you have a baby in there. Like, it's still you. Like, that whole idea of, where you go, there you are. Like, that's it. So, even if you're not pregnant now, but you are dreaming of being in that place someday, now's the time to start. Like, now's the time to start to daily incorporate into your routine practices that communicate to your body that we are on the same page, we are a team, and we're not enemies. Because for the longest time, I thought my body had betrayed me because I had all these symptoms that were uncomfortable and seemingly like hindering me from living the life I wanted to live. And what actually was hindering me from living the life I wanted to live was that I had a broken relationship with my body. It wasn't my body that was letting me down. It was that we were completely disconnected. And so when we are not in tune with the messages and we're not able to receive them or hear them that our body's sending, then it's easy to live a pretty mismatched life. Like if your body's tired and wants to stay home and rest, and you're not going to listen, if you're not able to listen to that or not hear that, and you go out and stay up really late and maybe eat some food that's not super nourishing, you're going to feel awful later. But if you like are in tune with your body and are like, oh, actually, tonight, my body really needs me to rest, to go to bed early, and to, eat something nourishing, you're probably going to wake up and feel better the next day. So, like, this makes sense. But in our culture, I think we're not taught from a young age. I think about in this book that I read, Women's Bodies, Women's Wisdom by Dr. Christiane Northrup, she told a story about how this conditioning to override what we're hearing our body telling us starts really young. And her daughter was in either kindergarten or preschool and came home one day and said that she needed to go to the bathroom and the teacher wouldn't let her because it wasn't bathroom time. And the mother, the author of this book, the doctor was like, she wrote a letter or marched over to the teacher, I couldn't remember which one, and was like, my daughter can go to the bathroom when she needs to go. Like, that's just a subtle way, though, that we as a culture are like, no, don't listen. Like, you need to wait to listen to what your body is trying to tell you needs to happen now because it's inconvenient or it's not on the schedule or whatever. And I mean, I'm totally guilty of that too. I'm in the middle of, working and I know like, oh, I need a drink of water or, oh, I get the message. It's like, you really should take like a 5-minute stretch break because your body's starting to feel icky. But I'm like, no, oops, sorry, my mic. I'm like, no, I have to get this done right now. And I just keep working and working and working. And then when I finally shut it down, I don't feel so great. So it's like, this is how it starts, like in these little things, building trust with our bodies that when they speak and ask for us to pay attention and to nourish them, we're going to listen and we're going to stop and pause because then together we can go faster, once we are able to do that and work with our bodies. So that's what like befriending your body, in my opinion, on a practical day to day level kind of looks like at the most basic
Yeah. So
place.
I love that, and so a couple of things that struck me on that. The first one is to remind everybody that is listening that a lot of what is being taught, a lot of what is being socially accepted, is based on studies and performance and standards of males.
Mhm.
Because when a lot of the things that are created and we are still following now were created, the majority of the people that was out there in the street working, doing, creating were males.
Mhm.
Females were in the house. And then there is one thing, and I know that Dr. Christine touched on this one too, is the fact that our cycles are different than the male cycle. The male cycle runs over and resets every 24 hours. Our cycle, like our period, is at 28 days. So I love how you were saying into how we keep pushing ourselves, not hearing what our body's saying and overriding those messages. And that struck me because when I start my journey, my health journey, and also as a coach several years ago, I used to just drink Coke, and I was never hungry, thirsty. And my husband will be always like, "Drink water," and I was like, "I'm not thirsty. No, I don't want to." And then I start this journey, and then I start the goal of 8 glasses of water. And at that moment, I was like, "Oh my gosh, I need to buy diapers. I'm gonna get pee out of my ears. It's not possible that I have 8 glasses of water." And after a couple of days, I start feeling thirst. And I'm like, this is so weird. I'm drinking more
Wow.
water and I'm now feeling thirst. And then I still remember one day that I really sit on me and broke my heart. I start crying, saying sorry to my body because I was like,
Mm,
you really give up on me. That is what happened. You
mm,
were so tired to ask me for water and knowing that I was not going to give it to you that you were like, okay, I'm going to figure out on my own how to try to keep you as balanced as possible. I'm going to stop asking you for what we need because you are not listening. And
mm,
that is one that I always tell my clients. For example, the water. Your body will ask you for water for 3 days. After the third day, your body don't have the luxury to keep telling you, "Hey, Erica, can you please give me water?" After the third day, your body's like, "Okay, I'm on my own. I don't have my friend Erica to support me. I need to figure out other ways to have water." And that is just an example that I remember when you were talking about how it's so critical what you're saying of listening the message of the body, and then also being aware that when we stop listening at some point, our body's going to stop talking to us. Like, how many of you had a friend that come every 2 or 3 days telling you about horrible stories about a toxic relationship, and you give them advice and you share with them and you tell them that it's not safe, but then they go back and go back into the same cycle? After a couple of times, all of us are going to just like, why am even bothered to tell you something if you are not listening? And I think that that is what happened with our bodies sometimes. So, Erica, on that point, before we go into self-compassion, for these moms that are in these moms to be there, like, but I don't hear any of those messages, like, because it could be that they are been ignoring the message for so long that their body is not even having a louder voice. How they can start repairing that relationship, how they can start paying attention to their body, what are some of those things that they can start doing to almost give the first step and say, hey, you know what, I'm gonna be listening to you, I'm here, I'm paying attention to what you have to say.
Yeah. Oh, it's a great thing to dive into. And I appreciate you adding the component on about how even just our idea of productivity or what we should be accomplishing in a day, either just like physically, if we're talking about our workouts or our nutrition, and also our work, it's not based on the way a woman's body actually cycles in a month, like you said. And so I think a great first step, because I also, in all of this chaos, like you were saying, the body shuts down when it's being deprived of nutrients for so long. It shuts down the functions it considers non essential, and fertility is one of those. And so I lost my period for years, and once I finally, was in a relationship with my husband and realized I did want to get pregnant someday, I realized I had so much work to do in order even for that process of my body to feel safe enough to take that process back online. And so I started to read kind of anything I could get my hands on about how to heal that connection loop between like brain and ovaries. And some of the books that came up for me, like Living in the Flow, I think Elisa Vitti is how you say her name. Um, and Beyond the Pill, because I was on hormonal birth control prior to this as well, which definitely interfered with my normal cycle rhythm. And there's a lot of things on that too, I could go into. But anyways, I realized that I needed to be structuring in order to be optimized in my health, my nutrition, my routine, my workouts, my work, even my social outings, like around the rhythm of my body. Now, if you don't have a cycle because, like I was, you were missing it, then you can cycle around the moon because the moon mirrors the woman's hormonal cycle. So you can follow, there's a lot of, if you just search this now online, it's going to pop up because there's a growing, thankfully, awareness around the idea that females are not the same every day on repeat from, in a 24-hour period. And our health is a lot better when we're paying attention to the fluctuations and flowing with that. So if you're just curious about like, okay, so in the first, week of my cycle, what are the foods that are going to make me feel better and energized? What kind of workout should I be doing? That is a good place to start, especially too if you are wanting to get pregnant later on. That's going to optimize your fertility and improve your overall like sexual health and function.
um and that, I think that that is so much there into paying attention, and it's so right. And one of the things that I always think about and reflect is how much magic our body does when we are taking care of her. And like, one of the
Mhm.
things that happened to me when I decided I want to get pregnant was, um I went to the doctor, and the doctor literally dismissed me and said, like, oh, you are too old, you are a geriatric mom, you can try for over a year, you can try for the next year, and in a year you can make an appointment and we will start fertility treatment. Like, literally his diagnosis was, you will have to have a fertility treatment, but I will give you a year to try. And that was in August, and I got pregnant in October. And talking about what you're saying on the missing the period, I am convinced 100% that the reason for that was that my body was so healthy and my body was so stable hormone with my hormones due to the fact of what I was eating, that I was able to balance out all those years of anticonceptives and be ready to hold new life inside of me.
Mm.
So I love that. Now let's gonna go a little deeper into um, a big part of this, that is the self-love, self-compassion part, and that is what is really self-compassion and how these moms can start practicing self-compassion and how that is going to um, butterfly effect into also their journey as moms and how they behave with their children and their spouse, actually knowing that I was actually reading this, one of the hardest times in the m- marriage cycle, in the life cycle of a marriage, is the first couple of years of a child, where everything else is going on.
100%.
So, what is that? How we can understand really what self compassion is, and what are some of those things that we can start doing to start showing self compassion to ourselves every day?
Hmm. Well, one thing that stood out to me that you touched on a little while ago in this conversation was this grief. Like, I realized at the beginning of kind of my healing process with my relationship to my body that I did feel like an overwhelming sense of grief that I had ignored and kind of demonized my body for so long. Like, it made me really sad, and I think it's important to, like, let yourself feel that, but then also know it can be repaired. It's repairable. Like, I consider your body a relationship just as vital, if not actually more, like, than the most important relationships we have with the people we love. And so, when you have a pain point in a relationship with, say, a partner or a family member, if you really care about it and desire for it to be thriving at some point, you're going to work through that. You're going to figure out what support we need, whatever it is, in order to move through this pain point. And so with your body, like, I think for me, like, having the mindset that my body is a relationship that must be maintained just the same as anyone else. And really, I think for me, it's gonna work best if I put that first, even because then I'm able to show up to the other relationships a more, embodied version of myself, a more connected version of myself. And so I think that that's kind of for me where the compassion piece starts, is like, let yourself, maybe, if you do feel that grief of years, for me, like, years of overriding my body's signals and not paying attention to what it needed, and um feeling the sadness of that, but then not getting stuck there and realizing it's totally repairable, though. Like, but if I understand, like, that seems, for some, it may seem really overwhelming because, the years, like the decade that I spent with a disordered relationship with my food and my body, I never paid attention to my hunger and fullness signals. Like, that's just a basic function our bodies have, and I was always overriding that, either starving myself or binging or whatever. And so that was something, though, I never believed could be repaired. I was like, I'm just never going to know when I'm actually hungry, actually full. Well, I'm here to tell you it is totally possible. And with time of practicing in this, the littlest things, like, I was a runner in high school and into my early adult life. I never stopped to check if I actually liked running, though. It was just the form of exercise I thought you had to do to stay in shape. And, there's so much pressure on women to be like rail thin and all these things. And so it's like, that's what I needed to do. Well, ironically, when I started this healing process, I actually paused for a second and realized I don't actually think I like running very much. So, like, one of the changes for me was I switched to walking. And I absolutely love walking now. And I mean, on the occasion, I might get like an urge to sprint up and down the beach or something, but I'm not going to just do it to do it now. It's like I actually stopped and took inventory of what movement actually feels good for me. And that was, and I mean, the amount I was running was totally depleting my body also, which can be a problem if you're trying to get your period back. If you're over exercising and under eating, your body's not going to feel safe to make a baby at that time, you know? So be aware of that. The walking, that's just like a little example of how I actually stopped and listened and realized, oh, my body doesn't actually really like running that much. So let me find a different. I also added yoga in as the first thing I did in the morning rather than like a really intense hit workout. And I mean, that's a game changer for me in the mornings now. Like, I love starting my day like zenned out, tuned in. My body feels like more open. Like, that was another change that's so simple, but really, actually, really big because it was me listening and then actually altering my routine and my choices, my health choices based on what actually felt good in your body, rather than just what you thought you had to do to stay in shape.
And that struck me because going back into society and those impossible standards that we are being taught and grow up with, and being this way, showing up this way, that is a great point for moms that had their baby and want to get pregnant again and are frustrated because they are trying and they're not getting pregnant. But then again, like you were talking at the beginning of the show, when you go to some of those Western approaches, they only think about the physical part and say, no, well, you're healthy, keep trying. If not, then we will go fertility. But then if you go a little beyond that, a lot of them are also still breastfeeding or feeling still very worried about their first baby weight and releasing that baby weight, because then they are afraid of, if I don't release that baby weight and then I get pregnant again, then I'm gonna be this and that. So they are also pushing their body into working out, into not eating much. And I love how you are being reinforcing throughout the episode this phrase that I want everybody to write down, and is, your body needs to feel safe. Your
Mhm.
body needs to feel safe. And that is something that Erica was saying before that I want to reinforce, and that is, your body is the most effective and efficient machine in the world, and your
Yes.
body job is keeping you alive. And when that job is in jeopardy, your body take a CEO hat, an executive ordering checklist, and start prioritizing what is from the most important to the less important systems and processes to keep you alive. So your body cannot stop you from breathing because you will die. Your body will not stop your heart, your circulatory system, because you will die. Your body cannot stop some of those their brain, so then your body start compromising with your digestive system, because
Mhm.
you could live without an optimal digestive system. You will not live well, but you could live. You don't need a functional, healthy reproductive system to survive. You could survive without having that option. So that is where we start actually, how I call it, peeling the onion into, it's never
Mm.
about that first part and that first goal of, am I healthy or am I not healthy? Am I eating and exercising, therefore I'm healthy? It's about, like you were saying, what message your body is receiving. Is your body feeling in danger? Is your body feeling that there is not enough? Uh, and this is something very true for the ones that are trying to be pregnant after the first child. Your body already
Mm.
know how much energy it takes to build a human. If you are not eating enough, your body's like, we don't have enough just for us and keeping this little human that we already have alive. There is no way in the world I'm going to allow you to get pregnant, because we just will not be in a safe position for us or that new baby. So I love how you are reinforcing that feeling. Now, let's gonna go also into that part of how you call it this is. And that this is will be physical and mentally. And then what are some of those very specific, clear things that all these moms and moms to be can start doing right now to pay attention to that this is, to start showing compassion to themselves, and to start listening to their own body's message?
Hmm. Yeah, I mean, I didn't know where to start in this area because like I said, when my naturopathic doctor was like, "You're gonna have to address some of the emotional health or the symptoms of like ill emotional health." I was like, "Okay, what does that even mean?" Because we don't teach in schools how to do breath work to little kids or how to do grounding. There's not, I mean, so much now, more and more and more kids are spending less time outside, which is a natural remedy to ground yourself bare feet in the dirt. Like there's actual science that shows that your body is being balanced on a cellular level when you're putting your feet in the dirt. And
Oh, do we lose Erica?
so, and we're losing a lot of that with so much screen time. Are you there?
Yeah, I think
Okay.
that we are losing you.
Really? I did get a message, but it went away that popped up that said the connection might have been broken. Do you think we're back
Now,
now?
now I am listening you well.
Okay.
Continue.
Um, yeah. So yes, that's a great question, and I will give some tangible ideas of where to start with this. One of the things that I started to explore was emotional freedom technique, which is also known as tapping. And there's certain acupressure points on the body that you're going through and tapping while also saying a certain phrase that basically is helping you to release where the energy, the stuck energy is being stored on the body. And I love this one because it's really generally a pretty fast. I'm not saying it always will be fast, but I have definitely had situations where I feel emotionally blocked and stuck. And I do a round of tapping. You can look this up online. I think it's the well, if you just tap in EFT, emotional freedom technique, you're going to find a lot of resources and some videos. Jennifer Partridge, I think, has some great YouTube tutorials on it. But I have found it to be really effective if I need, like, okay, I'm stuck. I don't want to carry this into my entire day. I'm going to sit down and do a round of tapping. So that's one thing you can do to just like rebalance your system and tune in and release. Because I think that's a thing. We're going to have stressors. There's going to be things that happen in life that are unpleasant and give us that, maybe they spike our cortisol, which is our stress hormone. And so we feel like you just, are going to be chased by a bear or whatever. That's okay to feel that. But what doesn't work for us is to then stay stuck there for the rest of the day, the whole week, the next year, And so many of us are just drinking more coffee and doing more like exercise or whatever that is also very stimulating. We're not tapping into the down regulating um like we're not working on down regulating our nervous system enough, I think. And so therefore we're stressed out, overtired, not sleeping, over caffeinated, whatever. So tapping's a great thing. I mean, for me, yoga, like getting on my mat and starting with something that is slow, just my personality, I think is really important for me because if I wasn't intentional, I would immediately like spring out of bed in the morning and start working and just like run off and start the day without checking in, without taking a minute to like pause and breathe and think about like, how do I want this day to go? Like, what is my intention for this day? Um, how do I want to feel and experience things? Like just the things that bring you into the slow mode. Like I think for me, because I'm more of a like go, go, go person, the like walking is another thing for me that is very helpful in down regulating my system. If my nervous system is like, I have done journaling periodically. I think that's more challenging for me though, because it does take just such a commitment to sit there and write out your thoughts and feelings. So um, that one may not fit every person, but I know that it can be helpful as well. Those are some of the first ones that come to mind for me. Um,
I love that, and
yeah,
I love how simple they are because one of the biggest things, especially for moms, mom to be's, but especially for moms in the first 12 months, is that it's very easy for us to jump into that hopelessness of I don't have time. I cannot do anything more. So when we start seeing that I don't need to work out 2 hours per day to feel good, that I don't need to do 90 minutes yoga in a yoga studio, that I don't need to do all of these things that for some of us, especially as first time moms or second moms, feel overwhelmed because we are like, I'm already so stretched. I'm stretched so thin that if I put one nail more, everything is going to fall apart. I love how simple your things are, like deep breathing while you are doing the dishes, while you are in the shower, um, going out now that thank goodness the weather is starting to turn, especially in the northern hemisphere. When you are going out to put the trash out, do it barefoot and just walk in and out on the grass. And then I mean, even for that one, it's fascinating because usually we recommend that is like in contact with the grass, with dirt, but that now are being then researched because there is a lot of people in huge metropolitan areas like Japan, like New York, that don't have access to dirt. And there are
Mhm.
researchers saying that even if you are having it over pavement,
Mhm.
the power of the connection, the pavement is just this big, the energetic connection between earth and you will go through that as well. So as
Mhm.
simple as that, I love how you are saying it. And the one thing that I want to thank you for is that you are also being very honest into saying there are things that are going to work, there are things that will not work for everybody, and then that you are giving these moms the clarity of be careful with those gurus that tell you this is what you need to do, this is the way to do it right, because what works for Erica may not work for me, and what worked for me may not work for Angie. And our path in our journey as a community, as females, is hold each other, support each other, so each of us can find what works for us. And I love that.
Mhm.
um
Mhm.
Erica, let's gonna talk a little bit as we get closer to the end of the show, into how we can start creating those daily rhythms, that way of living that honors our body, how we can start stacking some of those simple habits to make them part of the way that we live and the part of who we are.
Yeah, that's great. I love that you touched just real quick on the nature thing. That's something that was really simple that I actually did when I was working on my gut health as well, is I decided I was going to do everything I could to increase the time I spent outside because I just instantly I would feel so much peace and calm when I'd step outside. And so I started eating like 3 meals a day outside on my patio. And, like, you're already eating every day. So like go find, like you were saying, it can be done. They're seeing now even on concrete. Maybe that's one switch you make is you're gonna, if you have your kid, go outside and you're gonna sit and eat outside 3 times a day. Like you'd be amazed at how much that helps to reset your system and then go on to do the next thing and you feel more grounded just naturally. So, I mean, that's something that is free. So let's utilize the free resources. Yeah, but what you're saying about daily rhythms. So, I had to address this and completely overhaul my rhythm specifically when I was working on my sleep, because so much of the sleep research is that the way you start your day is going to impact your sleep. And so, what you do when you wake up in the morning is really important if you want to get a good night's sleep. And we all know that, like, when you're more rested, everything just feels better, like you have more mental clarity and creativity, and like your ability to handle stress in relationships is higher. And so, we want good sleep. And not only that, your body does so much healing and repair in sleep as well. So, as they say, if you're not sleeping, you're not healing. And I do think that's very true. So, I had a very disordered relationship with sleep, meaning that I was staying up way too late on my device, staring at blue light, talking on the phone while laying in bed with a friend, half asleep. I it was just a mess. I was also eating really late at night, sometimes even in the middle of the night. So all of the things that basically are not in harmony with the 24-hour or circadian rhythm is what they call it in science of the body, which is that it doesn't like to be eating all through the night. Ideally, you are stopping, your last meal is like 2 hours before you lay down and go to sleep. And that's so that your body at night can actually work on repair instead of just digestion, and all the blood going there. It wants to work on repairing and sorting all the information absorbed in your brain. So that's an example of something that we can do that's tangible. But in the morning, it's also really important that within the research I've seen is between the hours of 8 a.m. and 10 a.m. is the brightest full spectrum light. And you want to actually make sure your eyes are exposed to that early in the morning, first thing between 8 and 10 a.m. Like get outside and get that burst of light, because that helps set your body rhythm to where it is going to turn off melatonin, which is the hormone that helps you sleep in the morning. You don't want that when you're starting your workday, because then you're not going to be able to stay awake. But at night, your melatonin increases, but it's really important that your eyes are exposed to the light in the morning in order for melatonin production at night to be optimal. So even just kind of starting to understand the body's rhythm and then flowing with that is what has helped me significantly, like, improve my sleep. When it comes to at night, I really focus on dialing down, doing less stimulating activities, turning off my work as much as possible. I mean, all of this I'm finding, to be completely transparent, it has been kind of turned upside down with a newborn, because once you put them to sleep, it might be 7 o'clock, and like now it's the only time I've had all day to like work on something uninterrupted. And so I'm playing with like, how am I going to find my time to work that's not at night? Because for my sleep, that's really not optimal. But so, I mean, it's a dance. You have to kind of figure out as a new mom what's going to work for you. But my goal is to be shutting down work, and I turn off my phone at night. I mean, my husband and I, when we decided to unplug our Wi-Fi, like, router every night, we started dreaming, like, really vividly wild dreams that, like, we had not before. So, like, the whole, maybe you've heard about EMF stuff and you may not believe it. Is it real? Is it not? But I can tell you from experience, I did notice a difference in my sleep quality by way of, like, I was dreaming much more when we had our Wi-Fi unplugged at night. So turning your phone on airplane mode, unplugging your Wi-Fi, those are simple things that you might notice pretty rapidly a change in your sleep at night. So, I mean, those are some of the beginning, like, kind of just rhythm things. I try to fit my movement in first thing in the morning when when it's brightest outside, and that's usually a walk. And that's a great way for me to start, fresh air and set my rhythm for the day.
I love again how simple things are, and for the moms is getting out in the morning. If you are a mom to be, get the habit now, because one thing that Erica didn't mention particularly, that it will be game changer for your newborn to help your newborn to get the cycle of sleeping, exposing her to the that bright light. So get light, get out, feet on the ground, listen to your body, listen to what your body's saying. And Erica, we are getting close to the end of the show. So, very briefly, if you can share, if anybody wants to connect with you and reach out to you, can you please share briefly where they can find you?
Yes, and real quick, because you started the conversation this way, one game changer for me is the first thing I do when I wake up, non-negotiable wherever I am, is I drink a ton of water with electrolytes. And so, like, hydration matters, like you mentioned at the beginning. That is the most basic. Drink water first before anything else, and I feel so much better. And it sets your digestion on the right track too. It's
Yeah,
amazing.
let's
So,
go now. Let's go now. We need to close the show.
totally.
Please share one of your social media where they can connect with you.
Yeah. So I am on Instagram, Worth Wellness by Erica. And then the best place to find everything all in one spot is worthwellness.org. My podcast is up there, the blog, and all the other information, if you want to connect with me more, is there.
Thank you so much, Erica. Thank you for being here. This show can also be heard on the Spanglish Radio World Network. Please check out www.spanglishworld.ca for all the news and programming. Spanglish World. Watch it, hear it, read it, download it, and live it.